China is concerned, Beijing is concerned, they've been insistent that the Dalai Lama has to be reincarnated. And I can almost see the smile on your face that, I mean, how can a Chinese communist who's supposed to be an atheist insist on reincarnation? But they've been very insistent. And they say that he has to be reincarnated within the territorial boundaries of the People's Republic of China.
You're on the Gist on Strat News Global. I'm Surya Gangadharan. My guest is Jayadeva Ranade, a well-known China scholar. He's appeared on our channel many, many times. And we're looking at this, at the statement emanating from the Dalai Lama's office in Dharmshala, reaffirming that the institution of the Dalai Lama will continue. Jayadeva Ranade, explain to us exactly what is happening here. Have the battle lines been drawn, or is the Dalai Lama making something new?
No, Suraj, like this, if I can just say that this year, or maybe we can say this month, is a crucial month for Tibet and Tibetans. And we are seeing now the ball having been set rolling, as it were. All the shadow boxing and all the assertions by Beijing and by the Dalai Lama side as to whether it will be reincarnation or not or whatever, I think now it's becoming clear. And the Dalai Lama has sort of said that the institution of the Dalai Lama will continue. Now, you might recall some time ago, he'd said even that is a matter of doubt. I don't know whether it will continue or not. So that he made very clear. Second, in that book of his that was published just a month ago, 2 months ago, Voice of the Voiceless, he's hinted, to my mind at least, that there will be a reincarnation. And now he hasn't, of course, come out with the statement. So we'll have to wait and see. His birthday is on the 6th. So whether he comes out with the statement then or around that period. But it seems likely that he's going to go in for a reincarnation.
Mm-hmm.
Now the question is, what will be the reincarnation's age, etc.? Where will he be found? I'm sure you'll be asking all this. But as far as China is concerned, Beijing is concerned, they've been insistent that the Dalai Lama has to be reincarnated. And I can almost see the smile on your face that, I mean, how can a Chinese communist who's supposed to be an atheist insist on reincarnation? But they've been very insistent. And they say that he has to be reincarnated within the territorial boundaries of the People's Republic of China. Whereas the Dalai Lama has said, the 14th Dalai Lama, that I will not be reincarnated under an authoritarian regime. So I think to that extent, your comment that battle lines are drawn are clear. Now we have to wait and see what is going to happen. And I think, there will be more to come because we are just seeing the first phases of this starting now.
Normally, when this reincarnation thing happens, it happens after the current Dalai Lama is no more on the scene. So how does this work now?
Well, it's like this. The once the Dalai Lama passes from the scene, or before he passes from the scene, rather, he gives certain clues as to where he'll be found. Things like northwesterly direction or around this area, etc. And he gives some certain indicators. And then what the search party does, or the people who are designated as being responsible for finding the reincarnate, they set out on the search to, as per the clues. And their first stop is normally a holy lake where they try and look for reflections of the likely location of reincarnated. Then they set off in search. And when they find the little boy or whatever, then they show him some belongings of the Dalai Lama. So in this case, the 15th Dalai Lama reincarnate will be shown belongings of the 14th. And if he identifies them correctly and makes the right kind of, they may ask him questions or whatever, depending, he gives the right signals, then they identify him as the reincarnate and bring him back to Lhasa, where the training, etc. is done. Now, in this current case, of course, with the 14th Dalai Lama, there's no question of them going and looking for him in Tibet or somewhere, because he has said, I'm not going to be reincarnated in an authoritarian regime. And in any case, they'll find it difficult to go there. And secondly, they won't be able to bring him to Lhasa. So he will have to come back, I think, somewhere here for the training and the teachings that he's going to get. And in all this, you see, I think the Dalai Lama has been very, how shall I say, strategic. He is, by saying, I will not be born under an authoritarian regime, etc., he has actually deprived Beijing of certain, methodologies that they would otherwise use. That is denying the party, going to various places or whatever, and preempting. Of course, they still will, but at least in the process, they will not be able to be that heavy-handed as they might have been otherwise.
The Dalai Lama in the past has indicated it could even be a girl. I mean, do you take these comments seriously?
Well, I did not take it very seriously then. I don't take it very seriously now. But there was a purpose, I think, in making those comments. And the purpose was, A, to show that there are many options available to him, and thereby put Beijing in a state of confusion as to what he's planning to do. Which is why he said, the institution of the Dalai Lama may not continue. Things like this. Now, and I may be reincarnated, I may be emanated, whatever. So Beijing obviously had to try and finesse that if possible. So I think it was part of that process. He may still be reincarnated as a lady, but it'll be. I think it hasn't happened before, so it's unlikely.
In your view, has he left it rather late? This is the choice of a successor and all. I mean, with reincarnation and all. I mean, it's a very long drawn out procedure. Has he left
It
it
is,
rather late?
no, it is long drawn out, but in any case, the procedure will start after he has passed from the sea. It's a reincarnation. So he, let us say hypothetically, he had given the details of where he is going to be reincarnated earlier. So there are two questions arise. How would that help? And maybe it raises the vulnerability that if the Chinese get to know, then they would try something. So all those things come in. But so far, he's in good enough health to make his predictions and say where he's going to be. So I think so far he's been all right. I mean, and it's always these things. If something sudden happens, then there is a problem. But I think okay, and he will by now have worked out what it is. And I'm sure there'd be some trusted, very, very few, but trusted monks who he will entrust with this task as well as the details.
So if the Dalai Lama decides that his successor is actually born within the borders of India, that would be huge, wouldn't it?
Yes, it will be huge because, it's not the first time that the Dalai Lama has been found in India. I mean, in our present territorial boundary, because there was one, the fifth was found in Tawang. But it opens up certain, shall I say, strategic, dimensions. Like, for example, the Chinese will then start applying greater pressure on us, saying that the Dalai Lama's, the reincarnation is there, you hand him over or don't recognize him and all that kind of thing. I think Government of India's policy has been that they don't interfere in religious matters anyway. So if the Tibetans accept him, the government would probably accept. So, but that will open up one tension point. I think, but it will open it up anyway. Wherever he is reincarnated, the Chinese will say, don't recognize him, and that will not only be on us and wherever it is. So, but I doubt whether the Chinese pleas will be accepted.
Would you say the Chinese may have already decided that, on a successor to the Dalai Lama, probably lined up a few boys by now?
Yeah, I am almost. I could almost better it because you see the process is once the Dalai Lama passes from the scene, then there is a certain time when the monks get together and try and figure out, what is to be done, where it is, etc. That will take time. Then they send out the search parties to start looking for it. I think the Chinese are not going to waste too much time. They'll
Yeah.
probably take a decent time and say, well, here is the Dalai Lama and we found him, and all that kind of stuff. So, of course, the Tibetan community will be divided. The ones, I think, inside China will have little choice
Yeah.
except to follow whatever the Chinese Communist Party tells them. But the others, I think, one can almost sort of bet that they will not go with the Chinese choice. So they will go with whatever uh, the Dalai Lama has said. So I think that is the divide that we will see. And then, of course, the position that the reincarnate takes. Is he going to continue with the present Dalai Lama's policy? Is he going to become more assertive? Is he going to become less
Mm.
assertive? All those. But in any case, yeah, the fact that there is a reincarnation, not in the control of the Chinese state, means that there is a potential pinprick waiting for the
Mhm.
Chinese.
Mhm. So, in the interval between the death of the Dalai Lama and the installation of the other after he matures, what happens?
That is the most, I would think, the most vulnerable period, because the child is small, he's growing up, and then
Yeah.
how he grow up, you will have to have regents around him, you'll have to have tutors. Each one of them represents a point of vulnerability, really. If you look at it from the point of Chinese trying to do something, they could
Yeah.
poison the kid, they could, try and win over the regents or something, they could try and bribe them, all that kind of stuff will come into play. And
Hmm.
Tibetan history and that of the Dalai Lama, it has been full of all this. So, in fact, it makes a good murder mystery if you go through it. So that
Hmm.
kind of will come into play, but that will be high vulnerability for the uh, process and for the reincarnate. So that
Hmm.
is, I think, if the Dalai Lama chooses to be reincarnated and then he finds someone who's slightly older, or if he says, I'll go in for an emanation, then he's
Hmm.
reducing that period of vulnerability.
Hmm. So, emanation is what?
Excuse me?
Emanation. What? How
Eman-
does that happen?
Emanation is also a thing which the Dalai Lama came out with. That is, he says that instead of my being reincarnated, I can see my, the reflections of my soul or whatever in another person.
Hmm.
Uh, of course, that person will have to be educated in Buddhist teachings. He would have had to have a religious practice. So it could well be some young Lama who's with him or in,
Hmm.
the monasteries there. And he may have already identified someone. One doesn't know. And
Yeah.
well, that's the boy, and it could happen.
Hmm.
Reduces
So,
that whole period that I was telling you. And in a
yeah.
way, his emanation is then ready to get into, to take over.
Has emanation happened before?
Not that I'm aware of, but the Dalai Lama was quite categoric that the scriptures do provide for the emanation.
Hmm. Tell me, Jayadeva Ranade, is this whole thing of the Dalai Lama, that institution and everything, is it kind of outdated, anachronistic in today's world?
Surya, it is a matter of faith, frankly.
Yeah, yeah,
One
absolutely.
can't say, whether it's outdated or not. After all, I don't know whether you are, believe in Shiva or Vishnu, but the point is, we still believe in someone.
Yeah.
And, the Christians have Jesus Christ, and they also believe in the Virgin Mary. So, I mean, these are matters of faith. So you can try and bring out a rational or a scientific argument, but people will not buy it. I think here
Mhm.
also is the same thing. From what I have seen over the years, the Dalai Lama is literally venerated as a god. So, he's above all the normal stuff. So, people will go by what he says, and they have been going by what he says. And
Hmm.
that is his strength, really.
Yeah, that is his strength. That's the whole point. The successor, given that he will assume office only after some years, um, what guarantee is there that he will have the same hold over his people as the current Dalai Lama?
None. And in fact, that is what one of the factors that I'm implied when I said period of vulnerability. Will that
Hmm.
grow into the same kind of, and acquire the same stature as this Dalai Lama has present? And if you
Yeah.
look at the Dalai Lama also, it's actually been quite a impressive journey. From the time he
Absolutely.
came over here, and I always tell people without a shirt on his back. I mean, monks don't wear shirts, but that apart,
Yeah.
came over and look at the way he's built up and sustained
Yeah.
the Tibetan people, their movement, and he brought it to a level where, while they have been sidelined within China, but they still have a voice. They still are, making their presence felt, and the Chinese do have to take note of it, and that is the whole thing. So they are quite conscious of the fact that there may be two Dalai Lamas, which will be a problem for them. They did
Hmm.
not Dalai Lamas. They have tried to reach out earlier also, but and here, I would say that a lot also depends on their how they are viewed internationally. I mean, if the West doesn't view them favorably, if they're under pressure internationally through the international community, then all this can become a problem for them.
Yeah. Mhm. How, from India's point of view, given the fact that we keep reading reports that the Tibetan population here has been shrinking, many of them moving overseas. I mean, what does that? How does that leave us? Does it give us? Does it improve our things with China? Does it? I mean, how does it work?
See, there is a argument in certain quarters that the Dalai Lama's presence here, the Tibetans' presence here, is either in the main or partially responsible for our, problems with the Chinese.
Hmm.
But if you look, I mean, factually, that is incorrect. The problem with the Chinese started, ever since they began eyeing and moving into Tibet, where
Hmm.
we had certain representation, they never bothered. And, that has been the thing. And then we look at the way the Chinese have been, they've been very assertive in their policies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that problem has got nothing to do with it. I don't see, even if the Dalai Lama, just for, hypothetically, is born somewhere else or reincarnated somewhere else, I
Hmm.
don't see the problem going away the way the, Chinese have behaved and uh, drawn up their policies. So that will remain. For us, the issue is that we have about a lakh of Tibetans here, slightly under. It's a fact that there were more, but then they've gone out seeking greener pastures, better opportunities. So they've
Yeah.
gone to the US, they've gone to Europe, Canada, Australia, etc. And I suppose they will continue to look for opportunity. But the fact is that they continue to hope for or aspire for Tibetan independence, or
Hmm.
at least autonomy, as the Dalai Lama says. There may be a difference in opinion between the youngsters and the older Tibetans, with the younger lot wanting independence. But that movement does exist. So I think there is that, it's still there. Now, over time, of course, things may happen, it may get diluted. On the other hand, it may get strengthened. One doesn't know. But inside Tibet, in China, the Chinese authorities are applying a lot of pressure on
Hmm.
erasing Tibetan language, erasing Tibetan history and culture, etc. So things are quite difficult for them inside. Outside,
Hmm.
of course, they're still there, and these things are very much in currency.
Does China still see Tibet as the Achilles heel?
I think they see Tibet and Xinjiang and Mongolia, Inner Mongolia, as the Achilles heel. They are problematic areas for them. And if you just
Hmm.
look at Tibet and Xinjiang together, over 40% of China's account for over the China
Yeah.
landmass. And
Yeah.
with Tibet, the Chinese know, A, they haven't been able to control it 100%, and B, there was, as you know, the US assisted or inspired Kampa rebellion, etc. So those fears still haunt them. And that is the reason why you find the Chinese focusing attention on Nepal, because they don't want Nepal to be the launching pad yet again for
Mhm.
to create trouble inside Tibet.
Mhm.
Similarly, they're sensitive to Xinjiang and the Uyghurs. So these are the problems they have. And if right, earlier I had said a lot depends on how the new reincarnate, what his policies will be, which direction he goes. So if he decides to become assertive or aggressive or whatever, it could mean a lot of problems for the Chinese because there are 7 million Tibetans inside China.
Mhm. Last question. The Tibetan issue does have a resonance outside its borders. We've heard various statements by American presidents from Europe and so on. But somehow it doesn't seem to get the kind of charge that perhaps Ukraine has got or some of the other movements in other parts of the world have. How do you assess that? How do you read that?
I think, there are two, three things. Firstly, China is a major country, and more importantly, all of them, the US included, has deep economic ties with China.
Yeah.
So the first thing is, are they willing to cut those links or distance themselves? There's been a lot of talk about it, but
Yeah.
on little. And you have just seen that the US, Trump particularly spoke about tariffs, 500%, this, that, and the Chinese didn't respond at all.
Budget.
When they decided to, they just turned off the tap as far as rare earths is concerned. And what happened?
Yeah.
US had to concede and strike a deal. So the Chinese also play hardball, and that is a factor that we need to keep in mind. And then here it's a question of breaking away an entity or a region from an established state, established at least since the 1950s.
Yeah.
But with Ukraine had already become independent. They could
Yeah.
accuse Russia of, invading Ukraine, and
Invasion and
that situation is different. Plus, Ukraine is on the border or on the doorstep of the rest of Europe, who are
Mhm.
pretty apprehensive of Russia and its designs. So I think the contexts are different, and therefore, them stepping in on the Tibet issue is not going to be that easy. That doesn't mean that countries may not, engage in some covert activity or covert support via
Mhm.
the. But I don't know whether they'll do that. It means really risking a lot, and whether they're prepared to do that.
Mhm. So some hard things up there for Tibet and for India and for the Chinese. Jayadeva Ranade, thank you very much for that perspective.
Thank you, Surya. Pleasure to see you always.
That's all we have for you on this broadcast. Do subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on social media. Thank you very much.